Hi everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the Sewing Basket Tuesday morning, our weekly Wise Guys. We have a couple new things going on today. I'm really hoping that you can hear me and the sound is great. We have a new camera set up and a new service that we're using. You'll notice that we have a little blue frame around us, and I can also share my computer screen. I'm going to be doing that at the end of the video to show you a couple things. But our project today is going to be talking about making a 9-patch out of panels. Before we get into that, I want to just mention that on last Friday, we did our window shopping and showed you two new patterns that we had done that are Quilt As You Go. They're both set up to show you the entire process of Quilt As You Go. And each panel, one shows you how to do it in rows, one squares and rectangles. And it also shows you that you can do Quilt As You Go with no sashing, or you can do Quilt As You Go with sashing. That is a full video tutorial. It's on our website page as well as our YouTube channel. So you can get that there. If you missed that, you might want to check it out. Quilt As You Go is really a fun process. So today what we're going to talk about is 9-patch. Just a simple 9-patch. Cute little scrappy quilt with different colors, and then we pulled a coordinating color. Where did we get that fabric? Well, we got the fabric for all the little scrappy pieces from a panel. You look at panels and you always think of it just as the way you see it, one big panel. So here we had, this actually was 3 smaller panels on one piece. We had these for a while. A few people bought them, but a lot of people just didn't know what to do with them. So we decided that we would cut it up and make a 9-patch. The pumpkins go away. When you look at this quilt, you don't see any pumpkins. You don't see anything. It's all just scrappy colors of fabric. So it's an interesting way to think about using panels. And when I say panels, that can also be any fabric that's in your stash. You bought an old kit, don't like it quite as much as you used to. That, just because that fabric started its journey as a kit for a particular project, doesn't mean that you have to complete it that way. You can take kits apart, you can do different things. I'll show you a few of those things in a couple minutes. But it's just an interesting way. I can take any panel that I like that has the colors that I want. If I cut this into 2.5-inch strips, which turn out to be 2.5-inch squares, they're very small pieces, and you never really see what's on them. There will be a couple squares that you might want to leave out, but when it gets right down to it, it makes the quilt really interesting, and we chose to leave almost all of them in our quilt. We have a prior video that talks about how to straighten panels. A lot of times when they're printed, the fabric, they come a little bit cockeyed. There's a whole video on, again, our sewingbasket.biz daily dose page, or on our YouTube channel called Straightening Panels. So I'm not going to get into that. But basically what I would do is take this panel, fold it in half, and lay it on my cutting mat. And then I'm going to cut it into just 2-inch strips right across here, just 2 inches all the way across. So it's a really easy thing. So I'm taking this piece, which is, this one happens to be 2/3 of a yard. I'm going to take this piece, and I'm going to take a piece of coordinating fabric. In here, we chose just a cream-colored crackle, the exact same size piece. So 2/3 of a yard panel, 2/3 of a yard for the coordinating fabric. I cut it all into strips. I'm going to assume you know how to do that. We do have some videos on cutting as well. So once it's cut into strips, I sew 2 different, what we call strip sets. A strip set is strips that are sewn together in a particular order. This first strip set is 2 of my coordinate and 1 strip from my panel. My other strip set is 2 pieces from my panel and 1 from my coordinate. Once I have those strip sets done, and this is just a partial piece of a strip set, normally it would be your full 42 inches long. We just have already cut some off of here, and a smaller piece is easier to show on a demo. Once you do this, you're going to cross-cut these pieces, meaning right across this way at 2.5 inches. And what that's going to give you is 2 different sets of 3 inches each. You're going to have panel, cream, panel. This one from the other strip set is cream, panel, cream. And you're going to take 3 of them and you're going to sew them together. And that is going to make my 9-patch square. Once you've got them sewn together, your blocks are going to look like this. They're all going to be 5 pieces of panel, 4 pieces of cream. And they all look a little bit different. Once we have all of those made, for this particular quilt it was 16 squares. We picked a coordinate that we liked because we wanted to make our quilt a little bit bigger, and we just put a block, a solid, a block, and a solid. This little baby quilt finishes to about 32 by 42. We added a border. We did put together, let me rephrase that, Cheryl did put together a nice little pattern. It's actually a cutting sheet. It shows you how many squares, when I say square, how many 9 patches you will get from any particular size panel. From, I believe she started with a 18-inch panel up to a 1-yard panel. And she'll tell you how many 9-patch squares you get. When we made this, our idea was, let's look at some ways we can use those panels. Other things that you can do with panels, again, just look at them as fabric with color. You can use them for the rugs where you wrap the batting, the purses, again, where the batting is wrapped in 2.5-inch strips, the clothesline bowls that you sew together. Any pattern that uses 2.5-inch strips or 2.5-inch squares, your panels just become fabric. It doesn't have to be a panel. So that is a simple process of how you do it, but you sure don't think when you finish this quilt that that quilt started out as pumpkins and an owl. You just don't see it. So it's really kind of fun how you can do different things. I am going to take just a minute and I'm going to show you some other panels and ideas. One of the kits that we did this Halloween used this crow panel, or raven, I guess you would say. And they were dark and it made a really interesting quilt, but a lot of people liked the border fabric that we used and they didn't like the ravens. So what you can do on something like that is I could take the kit, take it apart, put the border fabric that you like with the raven and make 9 patches out of it. You would have the color and the look of the project as it was originally, but you wouldn't see any of the birds. They'd all be chopped up. And if you mix it with your second fabric, being either the border fabric that came in the kit with it, or you pick another fabric. I can pick something like this. This is just a batik. And this would make a really interesting 9-patch together. Another option, if I want to go a little bit darker, is I can take something like this. And again, you'd have a really interesting kind of a medium tone and dark 9-patch. Those 9 patches can make anything you want. You can do the little quilt that we have behind us. This quilt actually used the panel and 2/3 of a yard of fabric. We added a border to it as well. But it only used about half of the panel to make those 9-patch. So we could have made it a lot larger. The panel instruction sheet that we put together will tell you exactly how many 9-patch squares you get out of each size panel. So it's really nice. Cheryl did all the math for you, and it's an easy way to say, oh, great, I can just take a little piece of graph paper and decide how many rows I want, how many blocks across and down, and determine how many 9-patches you need. The other thing that would work out cute is if you took, say you bought 2 panels, you could then take the panel from here. I'm going to just fold this so we can take this little owl here, and say we decided we wanted to use this. We could center this panel, and then we could use our 9-patches and solid fabrics as a border all the way around. So you could incorporate the original look of the panel along with your 9-patches and your coordinated fabrics. So it's a fun way to be able to create something with a panel. It gives you sort of the concept of a stack and whack, but with 9-patches instead. And I'm going to show you one other thing, a couple other things I should say. This is another panel that is a Star Wars panel that says just roll with it. But if you look at the color and the pattern in here, if I chop this into 2.5-inch strips, I'm going to just get some really interesting mixed up colored squares, and then I can pull a coordinate that goes with it for my opposites and have a really interesting quilt. So other projects or panels, when you think about them, this is one that was just a sewing room panel. And if you chop this up, it would be all black and white. It would make a really interesting 9-patch. You could add other colors if you wanted to, but it's a way to look at panels differently. And very often, panels are a good deal. Check out the sale area in your local quilt shop, because a lot of times we'll have a project where we've sold many, many panels, but we might have just 2 or 3 left, and they're typically on sale at a very nice price. So it's a great way to look at a 9-patch quilt and maybe get a little deal on the fabric. Again, looking at color, this was a little Noah's Ark panel. If you don't want to do Noah's Ark, if I chop this up, I have all different colors, and that cute kind of blue and orange, real popular right now. It also gives you a way to play a little bit of an I Spy quilt. On some of the blocks, you might see a little piece of a giraffe or a little piece of owl. I could also fussy cut those pieces so that I would have that show up on a particular square. So excuse me, a fun way to play with a different project. And then you have some panels where they're a love me or hate me panel. These little squirrels, people either love them or hate them. And they're fun for cottage pillows, all different things. But if you look, they're all different colors. So this, cut into 2.5-inch squares, would be completely random, totally scrappy, and turn out to be a really cute little 9-patch type quilt. So I hope you enjoyed that. We're going to go over to the computer